Okay, so I want to talk a bit about economy of Victoria 2, project areas, their differences, and so on. Let's start with just describing the model of Victoria 2. In Victoria 2, you have one giant big market, the world market. You have some sub-world levels called spheres, and these spheres are subdivided into national markets, right? And at each level, you have, for example, this market connected like this constitutes this. You have some free floating markets, national markets, which are outside of any sphere. You have each of these, let's just say like this, this would be a sphere market level. These are national markets. And national markets decide production and demand, basically. Production. And they have individual demands. Then the entire market aggregates all this demand, all this production, and calls them supply and demand. So you have their total supply. And you have demand. And then this supply and demand allows Victoria 2 to go update its price. We will talk about price update a bit later. For now, we just want to show the exact responsibilities of each layer. And one can already see that, well, if you have a commodity C, then responsibility of setting price is on the most global level. So it doesn't matter if you have a shortage in individual lower level market. Well, you only have to care about global conditions. So if globally your commodity is in demand, the price is high. But even if you have some different conditions locally, it doesn't just matter for Victoria 2. You are using exactly the same price as everyone else. Okay, so how does it actually work? You have production, you have demand at lower level. The market, Victoria 2 market, clears the market on the national level first. So you have consumption, you have some consumption going on, then the rest of the unconsumed production and unconsumed demand and unsatisfied demand goes up. And then if it is not satisfied on the sphere level, it does go up. And if you are going at the highest level, then and actually at every level where you have multiple nations, they satisfy their demand and sell their supply according to the score. Okay, so this is quite a simple model, and one could wonder, why would Alice just change it anyway? What is an issue? Why? Well, the most important thing which you have to notice is this: the single price. Every market, sphere market, national market, world market, have exactly the same price. And we need to talk about price in a bit more precise way. What is the price, right? Price is a signal, whatever, which shows to producers that certain good has a lot of value. It's profitable. For example, it's profitable to produce if and only if it's actually needed by population or industries. This is what the goal of the price is. But let's consider a very simple example. We have production method A, which takes commodity D, C1, and converts it to 1 unit of commodity C2. Well, for example, you have here base price. Well, and of course, how does the price work in Victoria 2? You have a certain base price and a price multiplier. And the result and demand and supply influence exactly this value. Well, I don't know the exact formula. It is not exposed. I can't claim that I know it. But in general, people assume that price multiplier is converging to something like demand divided by supply. Well, and maybe there could be something like square root or some other function. It doesn't really matter exactly, because this is the issue. This would be the issue. Setting price multiplier to some arbitrary ratio between demand and supply, which contradicts the supply-demand model itself. But let's just move to this simple example. So we have here, for example, base price 1 is equal to, let's say, 10. And base price 2 is equal to 1. Then, of course, on the level of base prices, this kind of production method is not profitable at all. You are at loss. You are losing money. But imagine if commodity 2 is actually in high demand. So it could be, for example, here we have demand 2 is equal to, let's say, 10. And we have here supply 1 equal to 10. But here we have demand 1 is equal to 0, and here we have demand supply 2 is equal to 0. So we have a certain supply of commodity C1. We have demand of commodity C2. Well, of course, there should be a certain like epsilon, because it should resolve singularity. And so in general situation, in real world, we want to produce this commodity C2 via this production method to use supply of C1 and satisfy demand of C2. And price should help us to make everything profitable, right? And we want to produce 10 units of C2 from 10 units of C1, right? Well, let's think about what will happen in this case. So we have 10xa, we have 10 units of production method A, and now we have the following situation. Let's supply 1 is equal to 10, demand 1 is equal to 10, supply 2 is equal to 10, demand 2 is equal to 10. And now we want to calculate our price, given price, like the value to which it tends. And here we'll see that price 2 tends to base price because the ratio between supply and demand is 1. So price 2 tends to base price 2, which is equal to 1. And here we have price 1 tending to base price 1, which is equal to 10. So in the perfect situation where we have resolved the supply-demand imbalance and everyone is, well, kind of happy and doesn't want to change anything in their situation, we have the production method deeply unprofitable, right? We are bleeding money with this production method, even if it makes total sense, because we again have profit 1 minus 10 is equal to minus 9. We are losing 90% of money while doing something really insane. Well, this is the issue. This is an issue, and this issue is plaguing Victoria 2 on very deep levels. It's causing all these effects which crash Victoria 2 economy in the late game, make it junky in the early game, and so on. Because prices, you can't have, sometimes you can have a normal profitable production method just because of this price mechanism. Well, how the price should actually work? There is a simple description in supply-demand models that if supply is larger than demand, then price should go down. And if demand is lower than supply, then price should go up. Oh, if demand is larger than supply, then price should go up. This is basically an axiom of supply-demand model. And you can clearly see that this price update clearly does not satisfy this axiom. So one could say that in Victoria 2, supply and demand and price are not actually supply, demand, and price. They are something entirely else. They do not satisfy the basic assumption of the model. Because you can clearly see that if you have, for example, supply supply E equal to 2, demand E equal to 1, then you have price tending to, well, for example, base price Y equal to 1, then you have price Y tending to half of the 1, and that's all. When price is equal to this value, it just doesn't shrink further. You will see it as this kind of odd price for eternity. Because even if supply is 2 times larger than demand, you will still have the same price. While supply-demand model assumes that in this case, price should fall. When supply is larger than demand, the price should fall. It is just a basic assumption. Well, one could say, well, that's strange, why should it happen? And there is a simple explanation, which is based on underlying model of supply-demand model. For example, if you have a supply larger than demand, then you imagine that we have a lot of producers, a certain amount of producers, or even a distribution of producers of this supply. You have producer 1, producer 2, producer 3. All of them produce a certain amount of supply, which is accumulated into S. And demand is lower than S. It means that someone is just unable to sell their goods, their commodities, their production. They couldn't sell everything, and they are getting into loss. They can sell everything, but they want to sell everything to get the full profit. So it's kind of rational for them to decrease price a bit, their own price a bit, right? So, for example, the agent 4 was unable to sell everything. But if he decreases the price, then he would become a more important, a more valuable seller for the purchasers, for buyers. Buyers will consider buying from him first, and now someone else will suffer inability to sell things, right? But every time someone decreases the price, supply-demand model assumes that price decreases in general, right? So we have at this step price decreasing, and now there are some other assumptions coming into play. Now you have when the price going down, some producers can't maintain production at this level of price, and on the opposite side, some producers, some buyers can purchase more. They increase their demand in general. So supply is falling, demand is increasing. And it happens until, well, these kind of very famous curves, supply-demand curves, which intersect, and in the intersection they decide the current price, right? So we have, for example, if we have a historical graph, in this situation we start with supply larger than demand, then and we have a certain level of price. So price decreases, supply decreases with the price in some capacity. It doesn't. It could be really a chaotic process, really. And we have demand, which grows, or could stay the same, or it could grow at some really wild curves. It's not defined by basic supply-demand model which kind of curves are there. But here we have that at this point, the derivative of price is zero. It should stay here. But if demand grows, for example, and now demand larger than supply, we have price going up again. And then usually the process goes as follows. We have something like this. Supply, demand are really wild things usually. Demand is even not really possible to calculate in general. It's a kind of an abstract measure. But in games we have demand as a ground truth, so we can assume that demand is something tangible. So here we have price growing, right? Finally, here price stops growing. Now price is decreasing because supply now. So this is supply, right? Supply is larger than demand. Price is going down. Now supply is again smaller than demand. Price is going up. Now again and again. It should remind you about some mathematical notion, right? That if you consider a difference between supply and demand, it should be correlated with the derivative of the price, not with the price itself. So here we have price going down and up and down, and then it kind of stabilizes without any external disturbances. Okay, so this is kind of how the price is supposed to work, right? How does it work in Victoria 2? Well, I have described it. So here we have price stabilizing really fast, right? If you have supply and demand more or less stable and responding to the price, assuming that it is actually the case. Well, in Victoria 2, it's not actually the case. It's very often, supply and demand are just not adjusting to the prices themselves. You have a lot of demand which is generated just unconditionally without any attachment to the current price, and it's really harmful when you actually if suppose that you add the proper price mechanism, right, which corresponds to the actual supply demand model. Then you have sources of so-called inelastic demand, where, for example, some nation attempts to purchase a fixed amount of goods, and then if this nation attempts to purchase this amount of goods every single time, every single tick, without any adjustment by price, Well, guess what happens? The system does not converge. There is an elastic demand. The price goes up, goes up, goes up. Supply could just sometimes be unable to catch up with the demand, with this fixed demand. And it creates certain difficulties, which you have to resolve in the project Alice. So this is kind of a description of the price itself. And in Alice, what we are doing, we are fixing the price. It is the most foundational change of Alice economy. We replace the price mechanism. If we have the price in Victoria 2 and it changes according to supply-demand ratio in the first order dependency, the price is almost set to the demand-supply ratio. In Alice, supply-demand ratio influences the derivative of price instead. And this supposedly minor change, which maybe everyone could just ignore, it opened a whole can of worms, which led to further changes of the Victoria 2 economy in Project Alice. Because this is the most foundational definitional shift. We fix the supply-demand model of Victoria 2 in Project Alice by adjusting price mechanism to actually satisfy the axioms of supply-demand model. Okay, this is going way too long. So I guess in this video I just will talk about this kind of price thing. It's very important to understand the difference between Victoria 2 and Project Alice price mechanisms. Why the Victoria 2 mechanism is failing in many situations. And when you understand when it's failing, it's easy to accept that, well, Project Alice actually did something nice. It's not that we just want to mess with players. No, it's just fixing the basic assumptions of economy system. It's something that has to be done if you want to make the game interesting, more dynamic, and actually responsive to players' actions in terms of increasing supply or decreasing demand and so on. We want the game to be responsive. We don't want the game to converge to the odd states like described on this production method A, where you have something actually which should be actually profitable and required by people, but by population, by industries. But it's just can't be profitable enough. It creates so many problems in Victoria 2, it's just insane. Well, why does Victoria 2 actually use this? I'm not a Victoria 2 developer, but I assume that they just had no desire to spend a lot of time on economy system. The Victoria 2 economy system is bare bones. It's just undercooked. Criminally undercooked, I would say. And they, without any desire to spend a lot of time on balancing the economy, decided to go the easy road. They decided to just make the most stable price mechanism ever, which breaks all assumptions, but it converges. It converges to something without any assumptions, even if it produces odd results. So they kind of sacrifices the rigorous part of their economy to just make sure that the game does not explode, even if when the game does not explode, it just makes zero sense. So this is why I guess Victoria 2 developers were not willing to put the proper price mechanism in. Well, it's reasonable. They have to work in very tight conditions. They have to produce something which could sell, which would be made in the finite time. And in Project Telis, we have all the time in the world to balance all this stuff. So this is kind of an advantage. And we can actually afford maintaining this proper price mechanism. So this is the conclusion of this quite long talk. And I hope that in next video I will talk a bit more about supply and demand themselves in Project Telis, not only about the price.